In this video, learn the 3 best trades in one breaking news opportunity with a space exploration stock. Hi, I'm Mike Bellafiore, co-founder of SME Capital, and we're a proprietary trading firm located in Midtown Manhattan. And I'm also the author of the trading classic, One Good Trade, and the playbook. In this video, 2 developing traders work together to share the best trading opportunities in a headline news event for you. Let's get to work on sharing these game-changing trading lessons so you can grow your trading account.
We did our playbook on space, sell the news, opening range breakdown by me and Sebi. So laying the context to this day, first SPY was gapping near all-time highs and Qs was gapping right below all-time highs. That's not too relevant to this trade, so we're going to focus around context about space just because it trades more away from the beta names. So Space announced a $500 million at-the-money offering 2 minutes before the open this day. And that's the most relevant part. The second part is that about a week or so prior, Space had garnered a ton of attention after getting FAA approval to fly customers into space on June 25th. And that day, Space moved over 2 ATRs with a daily volume over 250 million.
Wasn't there a big event the day before?
Coming into that weekend, because this was a Monday trade, Richard Branson flew to space for the first orbital flight with his crew.
So do we think that's an important element to archive for this trade? I mean, this is the day after that flight?
That's important information, for sure.
So we agree that that should be...
That should be on there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look, and the reason why that's important is you're going to go back one of these days and you're going to look at these types of trades and you're going to want to make sure that you've archived the most important points so you can go back and study.
Right.
Okay.
And then, so this is the daily chart for space. You can see the very high gap on the 25th from the news. It's important to know that when people were kind of getting along from there after the gap and trying to enter the stock on a long position, that they're most likely risking below 43, as that kind of held before at a very important level. And it was also holding its range after the gap.
So that's a really good technical level. That's a really important technical level. That's a really good job of recognizing that important technical level. That is going to be, if we didn't know anything about this trade and we just said, here's a chart, here's the long-term chart, what would you do if this stock got below 43? You could make a trade with edge just by looking at that longer-term chart. I mean, that's a significant level. And you want to be thinking about that. You want to be thinking about, hey, if this is at a particular price, how much edge is there in terms of where it is for its long-term charts? That'd be a lot of edge below there.
Right. And that's exactly like the psychology of the trade, exactly what you mentioned. Yep. A lot of longs are positioned, especially from that day one and from days after, clearly defending that 43 area. And so from a psychological standpoint, if we are to close under 43, that a lot of longs are going to be trapped and you would see panic selling. And so with that hypothesis in mind, it's worth holding a core for a bigger move. And we believe that's the main part of this trade.
If you want to learn 3 more real-world setups that our traders use, including the simple setup that we teach all of our new traders, and the setup that turned one of our traders into a 7-figure big money earner, check out the free webinar that we're currently running. Just go ahead and click the link that should be appearing now at the top right-hand corner of your screen. That will open up the free registration page in a new window, so don't worry, you won't lose this video. You can also visit tradingworkshop.com to register for this free intensive workshop. You're going to learn more in a couple of hours from this trading workshop than from years of online education.
So this is kind of more of a zoomed in time frame. We can see that before we did have kind of a few lower highs here being done, and the important level to note here is 54. You can kind of see that after the gap up, we were struggling to hold above it, and especially on the middle Friday there, we were trying gapping up again at 54, and we retested it on the open and just completely flushed. And then from that day on, it's been very respected.
Going through the fundamentals of this trade, average volume, 37 million, institutional ownership, 26%, ATR of just over 5, float of 170 million, and short interest, probably the most important part, is 17%. So the concept behind this trade is sell the negative news. That means what should we look for? In terms of intraday price action, we should see high aggressive selling right off the open, especially because the news broke 2 minutes in the pre-market, 2 minutes before the opening bell. And so the two best possible scenarios are, one, like first move higher, get stuffed. You know sellers are up there. You know like that they're selling this aggressively, and we can push through on an opening range breakdown, or we just sell immediately right off the open, right? Like a lot of these longs are trying to get out, just flatting. So our game plan, scale out 80% into ATR, so we don't know how deep this is going to swing until that 43 level. That's the inflection we're looking for. And then we're holding 20% for that core to see if we close under 43, do we see day 2, day 3 selling? And reasons to sell, high volume capitulation, failure to sell on any real volume, pay yourself, and then high volume moves to the upside.
Well, I can think of a better trade. Can you think of a better trade? So you said the two best scenarios for the setup are, and then you named 2 scenarios, but I can think of a better one.
The bounce too.
Anyone else?
Get big into the close, swing it overnight.
Anyone else? So why are you waiting for the open?
Oh, short in the pre-market.
Yeah. Why not just short it when the news hits?
We're not allowed to trade pre-market right now.
Okay.
Yeah,
If you were allowed to trade pre-market,
that would be a better trade.
do you think that would be, and when you're playbooking this trade, do you think that would be a scenario worth thinking about?
Definitely.
Yeah, and also, if something's trading a lot in the pre-market, it will trade more like on the open. So if you're a little bit younger in your career and you're hesitant to trade in the pre-market, but something really is trading a bunch in the pre-market, it's going to be easier for you to trade than something that has very light volume. So yeah, that strikes me as, for news like that, you want to be thinking about, should you just short right away? All right.
It's important to go over kind of the story for the first 15 minutes. You can kind of see we did sell off in those first 2 minutes before the market opened. And we do try and we stuff at 51, try and push higher, test pre-market highs, see if we can go, and we immediately reject that 51 level, and the sell pressure just steps up, and you can just see how strong each of these bars are with all the volume coming into them too. There's not that many wicks on the first few bars, and it's just immediately strong sell pressure from the open after rejecting 51. And we immediately start pushing down to pre-market lows, which is 49 on the day.
When you look at that 51 level, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give it?
I'd give it 7, 8.
Okay.
I don't want to give it too much importance, but I'd notice that it is there.
Yeah, and what's the trend in the pre-market?
Down, because we did gap up and we just started
51
fading.
is the low of that area, right?
Of the pre-market, that's 50 right there.
Okay.
Where the kind of the two bases there, the 50.
Yep. So you've got that 51, and then 50 is below the low.
Mm-hmm. And it's important to know that kind of like pre-market trading, we can notice where there are bids stepping up and where then let it go by, and 50 was that point that we could note.
It looks clean there in the pre-market, though.
And it's interesting because we just opened up right at that 50 from the 2 bars of selling before.
Good.
And so for the rest of the day, some other entries that could have been, so we have that first selling off, which would be difficult to catch if you're just not immediately selling the news, especially because it happened 2 minutes to the open. We did get that major selling off, and then we do start forming a $1 consolidation after we do get a circuit breaker and limit down where we just opened up neutral on the day. and that can give you a good area to risk off of, where you can kind of enter on the high of the consolidation and then play it for a further breakdown. And at that point, when we were reaching 41, we're almost at that 1 ATR level, so it's kind of getting close to, you don't know how much further it can go, but you can still have an open mind about it. And then the important thing to note is that around 30 minutes within the open, we do push down and have our first kind of catch where it's at 41.80. When we slip below 42, but we can't push any farther down, and then we test 42 again, and we rebid 41.80. And it kind of acts as a double bottom where longs were getting in a little bit more strength, and we kind of push back as a mean reversion. And then afterwards, we were still so weak afterwards that we didn't even reach VWAP, and we kind of set up a base at 44, where the top was 44, and we just couldn't push any higher. Offers weren't lifting, and sellers were just being able to keep price below that 44, which is important, and it adds another area of entry. And interesting to note that we are below that 43 level intraday, where sellers or longs from prior were thinking about cutting their positions and are underwater now. Yeah. And evidently,
well, what do you think about a stock that opens up and trades from $50 down to $41.80 and then bounces and can't get above what price?
44.
Yeah, so what do you think about a stock that trades off, and from the pre-market a little bit, and then right on the open from 50 all the way down to 42-ish, and then bounces 2 points? Like just that in of itself.
It's still very weak.
Yeah, that's not much of a bounce.
Yeah.
I mean, look how steep it was. Yeah, it could have. You would look at a chart like that and be like, yeah, even if it went up to like 47, it would still be weak. Even if it went up to 45, it'd still be weak. If it went up, it's not a bounce at all.
Would it be a better term for it? Would be a retracement?
Yeah, it's a very weak retracement. I mean, it's not much of an up move. It's a really good question. It's actually, when something's that steep to the downside, from like 52-ish, 50-ish, all the way down to 42, and there's not a lot of time that's gone by, I think most people do use the word bounce, just because retracement is more, it was weak, it was like kind of steadily weak, and then it had a little bit of an up move. It's for something that isn't so volatile like that. It's for something that's more trending.
And then you can kind of just see like how weak it was. We closed very weak on the day at near low a day, and just overall sellers were very much so in control of this day. So the ideal trade management here is, so you can size in on the opening range breakdown, and you can put a stop at that 51 stuff and let it play down to the downside, and then just let it break down with it, and then see more of R vol increase throughout the move. We want to get rid of at least 20% lots in 25 increments ahead of the ATR so that we can cover. And the interesting aspect is, we haven't seen this in a while, but with the stock at 47, the LRP down, it was interesting seeing how to manage around that, especially because it was just so volatile within the first 5 minutes. So we want to cover going into that. And another add that you can have to the core is into that kind of $1 consolidation after the opening range breakdown. This can be a separate trade that you can put on a joint account or in a different account that you have. But the stop for this would be the top of that consolidation, and you can scale out and treat it more of a momentum trade into the lower days, and kind of trade it when you see high volume on very extended bars coming out. And then with the close under 43, we're looking for a gap down from another day to ATR move. So we're looking to hold some overnight with this move because of such a weak close.
Why we wanted to highlight this trade was, so Sebi and I trade completely differently, and our styles are completely different. So working together to extract more P&L from one idea is kind of like the overlying theme behind this. And then moving forward for the both of us, the goal is to carry this philosophy forward and talk to traders with different perspectives to expand our respective edges.
Tell me how you work together to...
Yeah, so I'm more of a, I guess, intraday swing type of trader. And so the push to Sebi would have been like the hold overnight, and the entry like right off the open. That opening range breakdown is something that I take a lot, like entering my positions within 5 minutes after the open or so. And then his push to me was that add and consolidation. So usually when I'm in positions, I don't like add, I just let it run. And so like thinking about where can I get bigger, where am I missing key spots where that I wouldn't even catch.
When you go back and look at that, and what's like the very best trade you see in that opportunity?
To me, I see like the short off the opening range breakdown and then adding into the close for the gap down.
Which one do you see as the best? Those are two trades. So which one, if we made you choose, which one would you choose?
I would take the gap down over the opening range breakdown.
Okay. Sebi, which one would you take?
For me, it's the consolidation breakdown into low a day where you can have a clear risk area. Just because the move happens so fast that if I can't anticipate, if I'm not playing reactionary to it, I want to analyze what happens after a while and get a good point to risk off of.
Can you show me that?
Right there. 45. I don't know if you can see. This would be my clear area to risk off.
Yeah, right there.
Where
right there without pointing. It's hard for me to. It's hard for me to like visualize that.
After the first, I'd say it was 10 minutes.
So I'm sorry, just circle it. It's
Right here, sorry.
right there, after the first 10 minutes.
After the first 10 minutes, we fail to push any lower, but we start consolidating for the 5 minutes. And it gives us a clear area to risk off of. That's the best and easiest trade for me. But then also working with Brian, sometimes I overthink these opening dives and breakdowns. And the way he has it set up is much more simple, and it's not expanding as much. You don't need as much mental capital to worry about the trade.
What about if you could trade in the pre-market?
If I could trade in the pre-market, especially after we gapped up so high after the Richard Branson news, after fading from like 52, I would trade after the initial 28 minutes. After when we got that news, I see.
So if that news hit and you could trade pre-market, you would have hit that.
That would have. I would have hit.
Yeah, I think there's three really great trades here. I think that one is a really great trade. The breaking news trade, you can make a ton of money trading like that. You can build a career off of that. You know the story, you connect the dots, it hits the tape, this thing is gapped up. If you look at our longer term charts, got a long way to go to the downside. You can hit that pretty hard. That's a great trade. That's an A+ trade. I think the trade overnight, the swing trade overnight, because it's not closing very well and it's closing below 43. I think that's a good trade too. I think that's a really good trade too. And I think the last one is it's just not really bouncing, retracing, and can't get above VWAP, and is consolidating beneath VWAP for a low a day finish. So it can't get above. I can't see that. I'm sorry. And I did just go get my eyes checked. Is it 44 at the top of that range?
44, yeah.
Yeah. So it tries to get above 44 3 times, and it can't.
They just can't.
And that's all below VWAP, and it's all below VWAP that's too low. When something's that steep to the downside, your VWAP is already going to be drawing at a line that's too low. So, the fact that it's holding below a VWAP that's too low, and then if you're looking at this just in terms of like intraday technical analysis, it can't get above 44. 44 is resistance. That can be certainly made into low of day intraday swing short for you guys. Those are 3 worthwhile trades. I have trouble seeing. I understand your trade. But you have to make and I understand the rules where you can't trade in the pre-market.
Yeah.
I'll talk to Carlton. But that's a much better trade than
The
agreed.
rejection.
yeah, the one that you want to make there. That's the breaking news trade's a much better trade for you, and it's fast acting, so you can use that ability to hit it hard quickly.
Right.
So those are the 3 best trades I see. Yeah, I mean, when you're doing these playbook trades, You'll get better as you go along. And and we'll talk some more about that, but you know, for the first couple of times, we'll get through that. Anyone have any questions?
Yeah. I mean, since the news dropped at 9:28, do you think the surprise factor, you know, maybe you caught a lot of people off sides with that news, added to, you know, how steep and how fast the move went, like right off the open?
I think it was surprising within the first 2 minutes, because at first I didn't think it was news. I thought it was just an imbalance that was happening 2 minutes before the market opened. And then after hitting the headlines, it was a much more reactionary move.
No, for sure. I think that's also why, like, we're talking about deep targets like that, just because you're going to see panic selling, and if you're going to see panic selling sustain, then there can be day 2, day 3. But yeah, for sure, the surprise.
Didn't this go to 30?
Yeah, 20s. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was our last target, 27.
There you go. Good target. Thanks, guys. Hey, go ahead and click our subscribe button so you don't miss any of the videos that we're producing for you in the trading community. And please take the time to add your feedback in the comment section for what videos you'd like for us to produce next and what you found helpful from this video. From all of us at S&B, train and trade well.